everyone, and welcome back to the Web3 Native Podcast. Today, we have a special guest and a special format. For those of you watching the video, you will notice that we are actually together in person with the skyline of Singapore behind us, of the hubs of global crypto. So, let's go ahead and get started. Today's episode features one of the new projects that's up and coming that's really exciting called Trenches. And the unique thing about Trenches, and also a new thing for Longhash Ventures as well, is it's actually run by an anonymous team. But we've had the privilege of actually attracting one of the Anon team members called Trenches King to join us in person today to show that it's a real person.
It is real, very real.
And also joined remotely, we actually have Trenches Bishop and Trenches Queen, who are in chat with us right now. So they will be responding. Forgive us if we're looking at the screen in a little bit. It's because this is like a group conversation that's happening through the channel through our Trenches King right here.
They're very real, they're just here. We can see them.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Great to have you here. Should I address you as what, King? And just call you King?
Whichever you're more comfortable with, or like I guess how the podcast environment would prefer this to be.
Okay, yeah, I'll just call you King then.
Okay.
Well, King, let's start off with a quick intro. What
Sure.
is Trenches, and who are the team behind it, or how do you get together?
Sure. I think thanks very much, first of all, Shikai, and the team at Longhash Ventures for having me and us here. Today it's always a pleasure to be able to share a bit more about myself and Team Trenches. And just a bit of introduction about myself. I've worked across investment banks over the last 16 years in the likes of UOB, BNP Paribas, SocGen, primarily in the roles of sales, trading, and management of teams across APAC. As for the team itself, I think we have a huge part of the C-suite members also from similar background. They are coming in from financial sector where they are holding roles from the likes of investment bankers, asset managers to hedge fund traders. Other team members will be hailing from the tech giants such as Microsoft, Google, Facebook to put. To highlight one of the reasons why I can actually sleep soundly at night is because our tech team is particularly experienced with cybersecurity as well as smart contract coding. I think we know that Trenches is in good hands even amongst our team members. Yeah, we are a global team. For me, myself, I reside in Singapore. The rest of the Trenches team resides across North America, Europe, and of course Asia in general.
Wow, pretty global, and sounds like a pretty good background as well, if I may just say because of the traditional finance and also tech giants there. Of course, we're gonna dive into the fact of like the decision of being anonymous a little bit after this.
Sure.
But before that, people probably for those of you who are wondering, what is Trenches, right? What are the products that Trenches is offering? Let's dive a bit into that first.
Well, for those who have also been exploring us on Trenches web and also on PancakeSwap, thanks for that in advance. What we want to say is that Trenches basically is the first of its kind tokenized asset management protocol. It derives different risk return matrix of a main single fund. As you might have imagined, the name Trenches was inspired, of course, by chess. And the word tranche actually came from a French word, which is often associated with tranche funds that cater to different classes of investors with varying risk appetite. Going in deeper into Trenches, we want to say that there are three main tokens that you need to know, and that is Token Queen, that basically tracks Bitcoin currently and can be split further into the two other tokens, which is Bishop and also Rook, and they are all on the weightage of 0.5, 0.5 add up into one coin. So in terms of token Bishop, you will need to know that it does not track BTC at all, and it's quite similar to the stable coin, the likes of the USDC, where it doesn't have any delta. And there's also Rook, which is a leverage token, and basically it's close to 2x of Bitcoin at this juncture. The inspiration for bringing Trenches to DeFi was a rather grounded and simple one, honestly. I think we're users of DeFi ourselves, and we found that in general, DeFi were lacking in some products that we were trying to see or be able to use in the DeFi space. We are basically inspired by addressing the lack ofs in the DeFi space. So what are they? I think to say, we know that currently there are limited single farming products and relatively low single asset farming returns. Okay, it was on this basis, right, that we want to create a single asset based fund with farming feature, so that it helps to alleviate against this need. We're also looking at it from a Bitcoin perspective, because I'm sure we all have Bitcoins in varying amounts. Yeah, and it's the largest holding coin in crypto space, right? There really isn't much yield to be gained anywhere at this juncture. Next, I guess you can say that the point about impermanent loss, I think we are all very familiar with that. And now, in order to get high yield, most of the time you'll need to pair up with something else to get more attractive yield. But you always have this lingering thought that, oh, there's impermanent loss at the back. Tron Chess basically has tokens that eliminates impermanent loss, because it only allows mainly single token takings with high returns, right? And I think forced liquidation will be something else that we were concerned as well. I think that is a big problem also due to the often on-chain traffic jam. Rook has no forced liquidation. There is a rebalancing logic that would actually prevent this from happening within Tron Chess protocol. So, well, I guess you can say that above these are some of the inspiration, or rather issues that we were trying to solve, that actually bring Tron Chess to fruition or to reality today.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So given we all think that in DeFi there's already a lot of products, and many of them seem to already address many issues, it's interesting to hear that you have zeroed in on some of the existing remaining problems, right, of impermanent loss, as you mentioned, liquidation, of course, single-sided kind of asset provision. Although it does not mean that each of the assets are the same, right? They are still kind of targeted at different user segments with different goals, or rather different risk profiles, right? So shall we just go a bit deeper, because I think Queen, Bishop, Rook, they are supposed to be used by almost kind of like very different types of people, right? So although the benefits are rather similar, the target is different. So how and why? Yes.
Sure. I think just to highlight again, I think Tron Chess protocol was basically construct with different risk profile kind of personalities in mind. I think we want to address the fact that all of us have different risk capacities, and we want to find that single kind of token in the DeFi space that suits different varying personalities. In Tron Chess, I think we have to start again with Token Queen right at the top, where it represents the main fund and a near 100% correlation to Bitcoin. I think for people that are long-term holders of Bitcoin, this will be the natural transition or basically into obtaining a coin in Tron Chess that they can leverage on. They get Queen, and basically they will be able to farm high yield. I think that's the main attraction for them.
So the first, if I might just recap, so for Queen itself, it is for existing Bitcoin holders to provide single-sided kind of liquidity with no impermanent loss and generate like a decent yield for people who just want to hold Bitcoin.
Exactly, spot on.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So with that, I think we will move on to Bishop.
Okay.
So from Queen, we can actually split into 0.5 Bishop and 0.5 Rook, as we have earlier mentioned. Token Bishop is actually a zero delta tranche, similar to USD type of stablecoin.
Sorry, zero delta for our non-financial.
Zero delta means no market risk. Basically, no. Once you've changed it into the likes of Bishop, which is again similar to USD C type of stablecoin, that there's no market risk. So we call that zero delta. Pardon me on that, just very used to this kind of a description, but I'll try to change around that. Token Rook in that sense will be.
Hang on. So for Bishop then, right? So since it's zero delta, it's stable coin. who is this suitable for?
Okay, so for the kind of obviously people with very conservative kind of mentality, they probably might even feel that at this juncture, holding Bitcoin might be a bit wobbly. They will probably be able to change it to Bishop and basically more enjoy from a stable yield kind of a mindset. So conservative, not looking for huge movements and volatility. I think this will be the kind of personality that will be interested in Bishop.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So to me, it sounds like basically anyone who's currently holding stable coins and they might be deploying this in several stablecoin farms, they should consider Bishop as one of the avenues in order to generate some real yield,
For sure.
plus yield farming on
Correct.
their stablecoin equivalents.
Correct. I think there are many and different possibility to actually incept to this coin. You
Yeah.
could start from Bitcoin, or you can directly incept into Bishop. So we are right on that point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for people who want to hold Bishop,
Yeah.
it's likely like they're holding it as if it's stablecoin, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah.
So moving into token Rook.
Yeah, let's go to work.
So token Rook will be close to a 2-time leverage of Bitcoin, and it is basically for people who are more into leverage and obviously more adventurous and having a thought or mentality that Bitcoin is probably going to move up from here, and I think that will be a good coin to leverage. I think we will mention again that Rook is interesting here because of the fact that there is no forced liquidation within the Tron Trust protocol. So in that sense, people who wants to be able to enjoy yield in the form of chess tokens, have leverage, and also more into a risk-taking category, they will definitely try to go into Rook to hold on to a mid-long term in that sense.
I see.
Yeah.
So to me, this sounds basically like Rook is for people who want kind of an amplified exposure, either on upside or downside of BTC, right? Like if you want amplified upside, then they would hold Rook. And of course, if they want to amplify their prediction is going to go down, they can somehow short Rook as well, and therefore have like a more exposure to that. Basically, it's like a amplified position, amplified view of where BTC is going to go.
I don't think we allow shorting of Rook at this juncture. It's more of a
Not on trenches itself.
Yeah,
but
sure. Well, it's
if there's
well, we generally encourage people to be long only, at least within our platform.
Yeah.
And I guess you mentioned it very well. In terms of like Queen, Bishop, and Rook, we can basically classify Queen as a long-term holder of a single lying under asset. In this case, Bitcoin. For Bishop, definitely will be for more conservative type of users, and Rook will be definitely guys who are more speculative of nature.
Yeah. So while I think there are different risk profiles that could be targeted for a more, I guess, sophisticated or well-balanced investor, they could, for example, think of a portfolio strategy that has a right allocation of like Queen and Bishop and Rook, such that a certain portion is in stablecoin equivalent, a certain portion is in like BTC, and a certain portion is like a more highly speculative component to amplify some of the returns, right? So
Definitely agree. In fact, I think what we're offering is also the flexibility for you to be able to convert or change the balance of the tokens that you have in order to suit the current market climate.
Could I just, it's just a curious side question, right?
Yeah.
How do you actually decide on the name? Like why Queen, Bishop, and Rook? Like, is it related to their property somehow? Is Bishop like because they're very conservative, and then Rook because they're like charging?
No, that's a very good question, and actually we talked about it within ourselves. I mean, King, it's the one that is there, but truth is it can only move one step at a time, right?
Yeah,
you
yeah.
really depend on Queen that is moving around, and so the property of Queen is the real control of the chess board, or everyone actually kind of like is to Queen. I mean, if you can know the number of moves that Bishop can do, the number of moves that Rook can make, well, basically it's all covered by Queen. So Queen being the main fund makes the most sense. and hence the kind of like name under that will be respectively kind of a one down layer in terms of subordination, in terms of tranche. That they should be just below.
Yeah, kind of makes sense. And actually, just thinking about it, because
Yeah.
how the queen can move is either diagonally or straight, right?
Anywhere.
And therefore, and bishop can move diagonally, rook can move straight.
Sure.
So when you combine these two, you get queen. Whereas if you break
Exactly.
down the possibilities of
Yeah.
movement for queen, you get the.
Yeah,
these
that's a
two
very
two
that's a very
archetypes.
interesting way of looking at it. So exactly like the directions of bishop and rook is indeed covered by queen.
Yeah, and kind of rook is straight line, so it could be like flat, stable. Whereas bishop is more inclined, so you can either be inclining up or down in that sense. Yeah.
Yes, you can be up or you can be sideways.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. True.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Of course, we have to kick the tires a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I think there are plenty of DeFi products already out there,
Yeah.
and while this sounds quite innovative, we must point out that indeed there are
Yeah.
alternatives already in the DeFi space, right? So for example, with Queen or with BTC holders, there are already places that they can, of course, get liquidity and get yield by providing liquidity, lending it out, staking it here and there, plenty of sources. With stablecoin yield, there's also plenty, right? Nowadays, from the very risky algo stablecoins to the really conservative kind of like lending and urn vaults and stuff. And even for amplified exposure, you have products from Index Coop, like the Fly Index, and later on they're going to come up with more and more products. And in fact, you could kind of do it yourself if you go on any of the lending protocols and basically leverage up and get amplified exposure, right?
Yeah.
So how will all of these products compete or differentiate with the existing substitutes or equivalents in other ecosystems or existing DeFi projects?
So I think there is a lot of comparison to do. In fact, the number of tokens that we can actually compare is quite a lot. Maybe we narrow it down to one of them.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's okay. I think first of all, it's there are many tokens out there and many type of offerings. But in terms of tranches, what is unique in itself is the totality of the ecosystem it offers, right? And within that tranches protocol, we have the different tokens that caters to basically the needs of different risk capacities. I think that's actually a key focus in itself. I clearly remember someone was asking with regards to Rook and how it's compared to other coins out there, for example, where there could be similar offerings of leverage. I think it's similar in the sense that, for example, we are all trying to solve a DeFi environment kind of problem, which is how do we minimize the risk of being liquidated? I think that's one of them. And the next is how do you actually get into this type of tokens easily? I think it's ease of access and also leverage. I think most of the coins maybe are trying to achieve that. But I guess if you look solely at for example, I think that's where the similarity actually ends. We actually able to get yield just from a single Rook token by itself. I think that's leverage plus good yield. I think that's quite good in that sense comparing to other similar token out there. In terms of liquidation risk, I think this is a point that we have highlighted on multiple times. There's no forced liquidation in tranches for Rook. And definitely we think that it also offers very low borrowing costs. And one thing that I would like to also highlight here, perhaps is not that apparent with also a lot of the tokens out there within the protocol, is that once you have chess tokens that is derived maybe from holding any of our coins, including Rook, you can lock it, and with the VChess that's produced, you get to enjoy a rebate of what Tron Chess protocol actually makes within a single day. The percentage can be pretty exciting, We have not yet made any announcements on that, but we believe that the community would be pretty happy once they see kind of like the number that's coming from us on the kind of sharing of Tranches protocols earnings on a weekly basis. Yes.
Yeah, I think we can dive into chess token a bit later. But if you may allow me to also still dive into this a little bit more, like to be very clear with the differentiation, right?
Sure.
Because there's something like Fly as well. Let's say the ETH Fly from Index Coop, right? It also doesn't have any liquidation that's possible, and essentially the cost of borrowing is also baked into the token itself. So it seems like in the actual product features, it doesn't really have a difference, right? I think the main difference is, of course, maybe their Bitcoin products is not very, to my knowledge, is not as aggressive as what we have deployed in terms of like rolling it out. So whereas now we are one of the first to market, I guess, in terms of having a Fly for BTC, right? I would say like speed to market. Is this what we're going for?
I wouldn't say that, like I would look at the coin in totality when in single token when
Yep.
we are looking at it. I would generally, as I highlighted, to look at it as a whole ecosystem. So I think it's what can be brought about, not just focusing on rook or bishop or queen, but the fact that at any point in time, if you want to look at a portfolio, asset management allocation and stuff, you can do it instantly. And I think what is out there, you may be able to have something that's offered by themselves as a single token, some particular similar kind of profile, but you will not have them as in a combined totality. And I think that's what makes Tranches protocol unique and different.
Okay. Yeah, certainly. And of course, one unique point that I know you've been emphasizing a lot is on the lack of the liquidation, right? Because this is a built-in part of the protocol. I think compared to something else that such as the Fly, which would use like a compounding, they don't have liquidation because they help you deleverage, right, as part of their asset management. Whereas in this case, it's kind of like built in as some built into the protocol itself that there's no liquidation possible. So let's go to some of the more extreme scenarios, right? Because
Sure.
With structured products, there's always that kind of concern. Because I think if people just hold BTC, there's volatility. Sometimes we even see 30 to 50% moves. It's not uncommon, right, in crypto.
Indeed.
So in Tranches' products for all of these, right, what will be the impact if, say, BTC moves, drops by half or suddenly pumps doubles overnight, right? Will there even be an impact?
I think that's a good question. So let's look at the tokens one by one in this extreme scenario. So let's look at, first of all, token Queen. I think Queen tracks BTC on a ratio 1, or close to 1. In that sense, when Bitcoin does drop, the NAV will follow the drop. For Bishop, it's basically dollar coin peg. In that sense, it will not move, so the NAV will remain close to 1. There's no impact, as what we have mentioned earlier before. And now we look at Rook. So Rook is very interesting in the sense that it's a leveraged token, and whatever the moves that Bitcoin or Queen has made in terms of NAV, the difference will be double in what's happening to Rook, because it's almost close to 2 times leverage. You mentioned a drop in 50% or half.
Yeah, because if once 50% move, normally you might expect some sort of liquidation, right?
Correct.
Cascading as well.
Correct.
Does any of that happen? Right?
So that's when the protection mechanism within Tranches protocol takes place. Even way before this takes place, when we can look at Rook, if it drops by 25%, that would be close to a 50%. No, if Queen drops to a 25%, and that would be equivalent to a 50% sort of a move for Rook, that will already trigger a rebalance mechanism to take place. And when that rebalance mechanism takes place, the NAV of all the coins will revert back to 1, and that's how forced liquidation is actually prevented. I think there are some details here. Perhaps if I can appeal to people who are keen to look at this a bit more, to go to trontrust.com and look at the white paper and documentation portion.
Because the rebalancing happens at the NAV level,
Sure.
within the tranches ecosystem.
Correct.
And rather than kind of use an external money market where you're actually borrowing against a collateral and you could get liquidated if the borrowings are higher than the threshold for the collateral, because it's within the whole tranches ecosystem,
Yeah.
and you're kind of like borrowing between these different parties to form up the NAV, right? And therefore you can just rebalance within your own tokens itself, and therefore not kind of like having to force some external liquidation to rebalance it.
That's true. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. I think from the onset, I think where I have maybe just to emphasize, I think Rook is basically getting its leverage from Bishop, and so the transfer of risk, it's from Bishop. But in the sense that in the whole ecosystem, there is no real net kind of loss, because it's all managed within the protocol. So yes, in that sense, the rebalance takes place such that is preventing liquidation of Bishop from the reduction in NAV, but it will not go into a process where they are no longer able to function internally, or like there are excess of coins that is need to be funded and so on, because all these are taking place within the whole portfolio of Queen, Bishop, and Rook.
Yeah. So in the sense that Rook borrows from Bishop,
Yeah.
and therefore the interest rate from Bishop comes from Rook.
Partially, yes.
Yeah, and from some other
Yeah.
sources.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
therefore,
like this type relationship allows you to just rebalance internally, right? That's the interesting part.
Yeah.
Maybe we should also just explain very quickly the idea of NAV and how that correlates, because for the benefit of viewers who are not as financially kind of savvy.
So in terms of NAV, we take over a 30-minute
Or even just the idea of NAV itself, and what does it mean to have an NAV that's balanced and
Okay, NAV
Thanks,
basically, if you look at other coin like Bitcoin, it's basically what just exists that you can see in trading at exchanges. So that would be NAP mark to market at that point of juncture. This can sometimes move, especially what we have seen in smaller exchanges, or in times of extreme market. That could be when the market is very illiquid. Sometimes you may observe in the teen hours of Asian time, there could be a blip, and so that kind of triggers a temporary drop in the price, or also called the NAV, net asset value. But what we have over here is actually a process that we take the average over 30 minutes. So basically we add up, we actually divide what's the price across this time to give you a price that's average across the 30-minute span. So with this in mind, or in consideration, for the beneficial of Tron protocol shareholders, they will not be allowing themselves subjected to a kind of a blip price, or a kind of like sharp move that we have seen in many cases of exchanges cause liquidation of their positions, basically cause maybe some unwanted, unexpected move to cause their position to be wiped out. So that's actually a bit of explanation of NAV, a bit of explanation of the TWAP, and also like how it applies to the coins.
Okay, thanks. It's a lot to digest. I think there's one last bit about the product itself, right? Which is, we seem to be trying to do a lot of stuff kind of internally, building out the entire ecosystem, right? Including the Oracle for a time weighted average, and also the trading itself for Bishop and Rook, right? Rather than kind of like, we will have it on certain dexes, but you have also built a more like traditional finance equivalent approach of like an order book exchange within tranches itself that you're going to launch. So what actually motivates you to build out this more, I guess, TradFi approaches of this Oracle, and also especially the order book mechanism, given we already have things like dexes that could be fully composable with all these tokens.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to before we go back to the question. So I just saw the guys saying that I probably want to highlight to you that at 25% of the Queen drop or the Bitcoin drop,
Yeah.
that's when the rebalance will be
Will
triggered.
be triggered. I
Yeah,
see. I see.
yeah. Just as a highlight, I think we mentioned that, but I think we need to say that again. My guys highlighted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So back to your question, I think as DeFi users, right, we encounter some of the good, bad, and ugly of the DeFi world ourselves, especially the Oracle attacks. I think by adopting an order book in which users are able to buy and sell discounted or premium NAV value of the future 30-minute TWAP window, Tronches actually hopes to eliminate any such Oracle attacks. This is also something that we will take time to explain, and this actually has to do with more how we can attract market makers becoming into an environment. We all know the importance of market makers for any so-called exchanges or swap and stuff like that. So when we have this sort of system, right, it actually eliminates not eliminates, it lowers the cost and becomes easier to manage for market makers to quote prices on two ends. If you're actually quoting a live coin, the movement or the underlying which moves a lot, it could be Bitcoin, for example. You can imagine that at this juncture, this price is here, you'll need to put a bid and offer to quote prices on both ends. And if it goes higher, you keep needing to delay away or cancel the orders and re-put another 2 orders or 3 orders on top, centered around where the actual underlying spot is. And that's the point of a market maker. Having a TWAP window, a 30-minute TWAP window, means to say that there's no need to be doing this because it's fixed until the next 30-minute where it's going to come through. So by having this kind of setup, market maker will be very happy to provide two-way prices to ensure everybody gets liquidity. So that's number one. When you make it easy for market makers, they come in, and I think it brings value to Tronches protocol ecosystem to users. It means to say that there's going to be more liquidity available. So one of the questions that was asked to us, in fact, in some of the AMAs and also within our Telegram chat, is that how do you ensure that we have liquidity in your tokens and stuff? The very fact that we have a TWAP window could attract and should attract the number of market makers, come in and make prices for us. And with increased liquidity, it really is what we are trying to achieve. Better prices for users at any instance. The last point also, it's more for market makers as well, and again this will make sure that liquidity is even more robust, is that because it's a TWAP space, you do not need to hedge the risk at any juncture instantly. If, for example, today you are a Bitcoin holder, you're a market maker for Bitcoin, and it's moving down, and you're trying to put some purchase bid order at the level, it moves down, you get given immediately. You may want to get out of the position by selling, but sometimes it moves down so much that you don't have the time to sell, and that's when you lose money. I'm going a bit more into details, but because TWAP is stable into the next 30 minutes, the price making action can be focused on really the action of sorting out what users need to buy and sell without the need to keep constantly adjust for hedging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so is this kind of the same setup that we see right now in centralized exchanges and other kind of traditional finance instruments? Are we trying to basically replicate what market makers are familiar with, or which parts are like slightly different?
We are actually trying to do something that is not entirely available in DeFi, and for sure in the TradFi world is also not that well used. It's only to a certain extent. I think it's a combination of what we can see is available as a possibility to protect the interests of market makers as well as users within the environment, that we adopt this. So even in the TradFi space, so-called dealing of this TWAP window is normally available only in very limited currency pairs. In fact, most of them are also only trading at point as well. And I guess this builds up to also a lot of risk in real life. But I guess with the minds of everybody on the team, TWAP window plus also, and in fact, a not lengthy TWAP window, but a 30-minute one, kind of like suits the purpose and provide enough liquidity for users and also market makers alike to be most, how you say, efficient in getting volume and transactions through, and into basically allowing them to buy and sell in a very short time but coordinated manner.
Right. Yeah, forgive me for diving a bit deeper into this, because like oracles in DeFi are one area that a lot of people are concerned about, right? Like, where do you get the sources for the TWAP, and could this be also a potential part that can be exploited if people know that like it's only going to move in the next 30 minutes, or they know what the sources of your oracle, then they can kind of like play against that, right? So how do we mitigate some of these potential attacks? So firstly, what are sources, and how do you mitigate like some of the strategies that can make use of this predictable change? Because there could be downsides as well, right? I mean, what's the downside of using TWAP? If the market moves quickly and then your TWAP is not yet reflected, that could present some interesting exploits.
That's a good question, but innately, if what will happen is that people, if it moves before the 30-minute window, people will have reacted by putting in the correct orders, be it adjustment on premium and discount. So that's point number one. And I think the next point where you want to mention is that the oracle attack happened because it's at point, at that very discrete time. Something like a blip happens. The TWAP 30-minute space will basically disallow this thing to happen, because I can't imagine someone able to press or hold on a blip in price for 30-minute non-stop. I think that's extremely difficult. With that in mind, we kind of like did a back test. We understand also like what is a good enough time to basically get an average to prevent this from happening. Maybe if you say that TWAP 1 minute is extremely a bit too short, it's possible to still blip it, or cause a very or the blip could cause a very huge distortion to the average price. But the 30-minute will be definitely difficult to manipulate. Yeah, and I guess that safeguard error in price, or people trying to do an oracle attack.
Yeah, I think we have more answers from Bishop as well.
Okay, so basically the oracle source is from Coinbase API 3, and backup is OKX. OKX will kick in once Coinbase fail, which is which based on the past stress test is extremely rare. Thanks, guys.
Nice.
Thanks.
Okay, I guess it shows there's some real interaction going on.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And of course I think we can start to move to the other questions. I think right now then I think the answers on the product is quite clear. There's one last part we didn't touch on the product, which is because we talk about Rook a lot.
Yeah.
Right, and how the prices, and actually Rook and Queen, because these will require the price of BTC to be reflected. Whereas for Bishop, what's really important is like what's the interest rate that you're borrowing from, in terms of from Rook to Bishop, right? So how is that interest rate set and adjusted?
Okay, so basically that would be once we first of all have to we have an option basically for various be it token Queen for Queen, Bishop, or Rook, to be able to select kind of like the interest rate that they think would be fair. So, and that could be 0 to or 4%, and basically everyone has a right to vote. And I guess the question would be then how would the weight of the vote be cast? That would depend on your VCHAS, or basically the amount of voting rights that you have. And I guess with VCHAS, the concept, a lot of the DeFi user might be already familiar with it, but some other protocol has it. In terms of VCHAS, first of all, how do you get it? You already previously have chess tokens. For you to have VCHAS, you will first need to lock your chess tokens to be able to produce your VCHAS. And there will be different station of like how much chess you lock that will generate the VCHAS. And it will always be an ongoing, I guess you can say, tussle of power between bishop and rook on what the interest rate payable or receiving should be. So for bishop, which is lending out coins, or you can say transfer of risk, would obviously hope to be able to lend at 4%. Rook, which is on the leverage side and borrowing risk on leverage, would obviously hope to be able to buy at 0%. So this will be done in a very transparent manner, in which people can vote for this, and it will take place on a weekly basis.
Nice.
And to add, obviously this is not the only interest rate they get. We are basically basing it on Venus borrowing rate on a 7-day basis, and this will be add on to whatever that's being voted between bishop and rook.
Yeah, I see. So you have the starting reference, which is then the money markets on ecosystem you can
Yeah.
build on. But from there, you can actually modulate based on what the community votes on, right? I
Exactly.
think this is a very interesting one because there's the two-way game theory, and it's like a recurring like prisoner's dilemma kind of thing, right? Where like one side wants all the way down, one side wants all the way up, but at the same time they need each other. Because if nobody's there to lend, or
Yes.
if nobody's there to borrow,
Yeah.
then there's your product also, the token you are holding no longer makes sense, or you don't have enough liquidity for it, right? So because of that, then I think we're trying to get the two parties to balance out on a middle point that is optimal. So we're trying to get the free market to then decide on what is the most efficient interest rate that people would pay for or lend out for.
I think supply and demand.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
put it
exactly,
rightly.
yeah.
So we think that like if it's going to an extreme of the 0 to 4% plus whatever that's being offered, people will come in on either side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much for going all the way through all the different products, right? And I know for our viewers who
pleasure,
come
my
through as
pleasure.
well,
Yeah.
it's quite complex. So it's definitely should read up the documents. I hope we broke it down enough here. Now, based on all of this, right? All this is pretty novel. There are some interesting ideas in there that are like not really fully explored yet in DeFi, and it seems that we're really here to build something new and serious. So it makes everybody wonder, right? It's not as if we're building. It doesn't look like a copycat project that's planning to rug pull and so on.
Not at all.
And I think based on the caliber of investors as well that have come in, right, including of course Three Arrows and some of the others, and including ourselves taking a bit of our reputation.
Long hash ventures.
our reputation on this as well.
Yeah.
Then the big question everybody always asks that I have to get to now, finally, elephant in the room,
Sure.
Which is the whole Anon team structure. Right, so since we're building something that is trying to be legit, why Anon?
Well, that's a good question, and we're not sure whether we want to give you the answer now. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So I want to say that we are remaining in anonymity, and basically that's me to come out to address with everyone and presenting ideas. It's only focused on one single purpose, and that purpose is to be able to allow the rest of the team to be able to focus and continue to deliver the best protocol out there is to you. I think you can see that this protocol has a lot of thoughts to it, and you try the UI. I'm sure the UX is great, and what we are trying to do is continuing now at this time and space to be able to deliver a few other things, multi-chain, other underlyings, and products in the future. If we are to distract at this point, where tell everyone, there's this guy and this guy, I'm not really sure what we are trying to fulfill, or what impact will it do. I'm sure you guys, Few Arrows and
Spartan as well.
Spartans, Binance Lab,
Binance Lab, yes.
yeah, they would have seen the product and they clearly invested from seed round that believing that this is a good product because they have seen it, they've seen the white paper. I'm very sure they saw the URL right from the start, and they believe that it's a great project. So I think a great project or a great product is agnostic to whoever is behind it. Yeah, that is actually where our purpose and aim currently is. We are really trying to minimize distraction, so that the rest of the team can focus on getting the best of the protocol out to everyone. Yeah. It's not advertisement piece. It's real. As real as I'm being here and talking to everyone now.
Right. Yeah, and of course, I think yourself and the team being in touch with us and the investors kind of like shows some level of trust. And to a certain extent, I think the reputation of the investors does de-risk some of it for the community to like by trusting the investors. And also, I think looking at the product itself, what other kind of assurances can people who are coming across Trenches for the first time look into to feel more comfortable, right? What other indicators can they depend on to feel secure that it's not a rug pull that's gonna come?
I think there's multiple ways you can look at this, and it's just maybe it's just me. I keep noticing the anonymity kind of questions keep coming up. I find that very interesting. No one will ever ask like, "Wow, this shoe by Adidas is so good. I wonder who designed it." I mean, like it's there. It's a great product. We'll buy it, and I thought that it will also apply to the project that obviously we are in. Maybe it's of a different scale and magnitude, so people are more concerned. Okay, but if I have to say, so far the decisions that we have undertaken as Trenches Protocol, I think sound logical. I think we have already launched on PancakeSwap and others. A lot of people will ask why PancakeSwap, why this. Again, you are launching on PancakeSwap in anonymity. Isn't that a concern? No. So basically, we launched on PancakeSwap because we think that with low gas fees and the kind of ecosystem that both Binance has to offer in totality, is basically a very lower risk and also higher potential kind of integration for us to start with.
Yeah.
I think also to clearly put it, we are anonymous and one of the small things, or you can say that we're trying to convince people that we are not trying to pull a fast one, is that we actively conduct audits on our protocols and prioritizing the deployment of DAO, which hands over the management of the protocol to the community. I think the Trenches protocol is open source. I asked this very clearly from our discussion with Queen. And it has a 1-day time lock, and all the contracts addresses are released such that anyone can actually monitor the transactions within the protocol. So there's no game theory, there's no hiding of anything in that sense. I would like to also emphasize again, we are a team. They are just working hard behind trying to make things work. So yeah, in the long run. So that's it. You know, not going to emphasize too much on the anonymity part since I already addressed it just now. Yeah.
Sure thing. Yeah, I understand. And often it's also a bit like a decision that is subjective for the team to take. I think it's more to assure the community or potential users of the product that of the other signs that they can look out for, right? One thing you touched on just now was on like why PancakeSwap and why BSC. And I think you explained a little bit just now, but maybe let's dive a bit deeper, right? Because there are other options out there already for low gas or like high throughput. Why did you choose BSC in particular?
I think low gas fees, high performance, and reliability, which actually is kind of our top priorities when we're launching Trenches Protocol. I mean, with our seed investor and all in mind, we want to make it work.
I mean, of course, with finance investing as well, right?
Yes.
But does that mean you're limited to BSC? Because are you gonna build out everything in BSC, or are you gonna also go multi-chain?
Well, we mentioned before that I think starting with Binance has the support of the Binance community, and there's the exchange and a native ecosystem, and they are naturally also, we know that, a fast growing community itself. Um, we have seen many protocols, big or small, actually on BSC, kind of doing pretty well from onset. I think where we are coming, honestly, is to ensure a launch platform that will help make sure that we do well and also protect investors' value. In the future, we are very open to looking at multi-chain. In fact, something that we have been discussing within the team. What will be the next chain? What will be the next underlying? I believe we have these conversations before ourselves, so we are clearly in the know. But we have to decide. It's not a question of like whether we'll do it. It's more a question of when we will do it. And I believe that this question will be seriously discussed, and I believe action will be meted out after the full launch of our protocol. Yeah.
All right, excited, looking forward to that.
Yes.
And partly maybe it depends on the community to make that decision as well, right? So I think the community part is always a core question for DeFi protocols. I think especially for trenches, where we expect the community to play an important role to decide the interest rate of the lending or / borrowing between the two types of tokens, and also get some sort of revenue share, and potentially going multi-chain. There are a lot of like the decisions that the community can already start potentially to get involved in quite early on, with or without the tokens, and even better with the tokens. So what kind of community are we trying to build, and how are we planning to engage them more?
That's a good question. We will like actually all kinds of people. We are not biased, or we do not distinct users from the protocol. I think it's more how we can appeal to everyone to take the first step to understand a bit more about Tranches protocol, and take away any bias also on the other side, to start looking at this as a unique kind of product by itself. There's always the question of like, are we appealing more to people from the DeFi space, or we are actually appealing more to TradFi in that sense? Again, we are not biased, because we are a platform born of DeFi, and actually we have already mentioned that we are trying to plug the gaps as what DeFi users face, like ourselves. But at the same time, our aim is to have something that can be also be recognized or be utilized by mainstream. I think if we understand DeFi is actually meant for everyone, it's not just meant for small portion of DeFi, it's actually for everyone. So in that case, when we have people looking at it from all extreme, I think we have done what we are trying to do in bringing a bit of TradFi and a bit of real world into DeFi, and forming the bridge between both sides.
Right. So we're trying to attract more kind of people coming from TradFi into DeFi, and especially those who can understand a more complex structured product that Tranches is building, and be able to contribute, in fact, to the discussion of the interest rate. Right? That sounds like what's the emerging answer.
It's no. So I would like to qualify that again. I guess first and foremost, I think DeFi users generally, because they have the background and the experience of where DeFi is, they will definitely be the first and foremost the ready community to be able to come into this from the onset. My personal experience with people from TradFi, or even speaking to TradFi people myself, it may be something that they are familiar in terms of products, because you add a crypto element on top, they will be a bit stumped, and basically they'll need some time to interact and digest before they decided whether, like, okay, it's not something that will collapse the next day. That's actually where they are.
Right. So it's kind of in between, where the DeFi people may be familiar with this from the token standpoint and the interface standpoint, but they need to understand the structured product a lot better. Whereas the TradFi people need to get to the crypto component. So I see now the community you're trying to build is kind of in between, or trying to like pull these two groups closer together, so that we get to like a sophisticated DeFi core community.
Yeah, like the way I put it is all users are welcome.
Mm.
Everyone's welcome. We will do our best to try and relate and explain our protocol to anyone who's interested.
Awesome. Well, I think this is also applicable in the discussion about multi-chain in a way, right? Because as we start from BSC, right, there's a certain community that forms, and then as we move to other ecosystems, then there might be other communities that join, and even I think currently the emerging narrative is also institutions coming in, especially with more structured products that will either are risk mitigated to a certain extent or more predictable because they're structured in that way. Is that the direction we're moving towards? It's also not just DeFi users and TradFi, but also somehow institutions.
Well, if we are moving into TradFi, I guess to naturally encompass FIs would be also a very natural move. In fact, such institutionalized kind of setup to understand this is not very complicated. I would not go into examples, but clearly in many different asset spaces, including equities, including FX, what is taking place in Tron Chess has somewhat already parts that is out there. It's a very elegant and simplified format in that sense that makes it easy for people to understand and actually able to execute. But at the same time, it's not as complex as what we are seeing in TradFi. So for someone in FI, financial institution, to come and say that, oh, today we like this, we are interested in maybe looking at it and putting some money in, it's definitely very possible. And that will go side by side with TradFi individuals. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a journey that all of DeFi is trying to move towards, right? I think we're all trying to create the world where one day, we no longer call DeFi and it's just finance.
Well, yes, and we kind of like respect the fact that there are still governance into traditional finance, and DeFi is itself still emerging. And being very honest, I think we've seen some maybe not so nice incidents happening on DeFi space. Yeah, truth is sometimes it happens to traditional finance as well, but I think we perhaps will need to find a day and a time where kind of like the base structure or the security of the protocol is at a very high level, where it's so good that everyone have to recognize that there's no way of getting better, and start to being able to realize this as the way to go. I think that there's still a certain journey, and we hope that at Tron Chess Protocol we are actually one of the first starter or someone, a team that's actually bringing this forward. Yeah.
Certainly ambitious. All right, I think we are coming quite past the hour already, actually.
Oh.
So
time passes fast.
let's wrap up with a bit of a future outlook, right? What can people expect next from Trenches, right? What's immediately on the horizon? What's immediately available that people should know about? Of course, including the chess tokens, including potentially multi-chain, including the longer term. What if it's aside from BTC products, we have other products coming up, right? So can you just run us through very quickly what can people expect from 1 week, 1 month, 1 year?
Sure. What day is today? Today, okay. So coming on Thursday, on the 15th of July, we will actually be having raise cap for amount of BTC that can be invested in Tron Chess from 300 to 400. So from there onwards,
so it is worth noteworthy that currently we're maxed out, right? Like it's
really
subscribed.
Sorry, we didn't even mention that. But what happened last Thursday was we raised the cap from 200 to 300 and within
BTC,
BTC
total value locked,
TVL. So basically within 15-20 minutes, I think this 300, this extra 1,000 Bitcoin allocation was taken up in a flash. So sorry for everyone that tried to get more the date is coming, and that's on 15th of July. 15th of July, 22:15. That's when you'll be able to get your next batch of BTC to Queen. Thereafter, we will be also increasing the numbers gradually before our full launch the week after. In terms of like, I think we have mentioned about chains and underlying, we will like to have it, but we are pragmatic in our approach. We want to finish our launch and ensuring that everything runs well before actually expanding into the other chains and underlying.
And other assets.
Correct, and other assets in this sense. Stay tuned to Tron-Chess Twitter and also our partner at Longhash Ventures for updates. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
King.
It's my pleasure. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Thanks for having
Let's
us.
just do a quick also channel shout out. Where can people find out more about Tron-Chess? I know there's a lot to digest here today, so please feel free to dive deep into the documentation, ask the team directly. Where can people read and reach the team?
Thanks. So definitely the Twitter handle for Tron-Chess is at @Tron-Chess. That'll be TRANCHESS. And for me, it will be @DCKINGT. Go on to also www.tronchess.com and go to documentation. You will be able to see our white paper inside, and if you are into details, that would definitely work very well for you. We look forward to also more participation inquiries from the DeFi community. Thanks for looking at Tron-Chess Protocol.
All right, excited to see more complex structured products and also more good practices from traditional finance coming into DeFi and spreading across chains and across assets. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Shikai, and the team at Longhash Ventures. Thanks for having us.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Web3 Native Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.